Welcome to Percussion Perspectives, a podcast by Henrik Knapper Larsen and Håkon Steine. Each episode of Percussion Perspectives features one or more musical artists in conversation about musical education, practice, and aesthetic and sociological perspectives.
Belgian percussionist Tom de Kock studied in Brussels and in Detmold, Germany, and obtained his Doctor of Arts degree at the Conservatorium in Brussels in 2015. For many years he held a position as a percussionist with the Brussels Philharmonic Orchestra, and he has been working as a freelance musician across Europe with ensembles such as Ensemble&nbsp, MusikFabrik, Nadar and Nikel. He is a member of the Ictus ensemble, where he now also conducts, curates concert programs and leads an academy for young professionals who wish to pursue a career in contemporary music. Tom has performed all over Europe and the US and regularly collaborates with prominent figures of the international contemporary music scene. In this episode, Tom talks about his work as a percussionist, as a program curator and a conductor with the renowned Ictus ensemble, about extending and challenging the classical notion of musical interpretation, about his work as an orchestra player with the Brussels Philharmonic, about the marketplace of musical education, about stress management, about personal limits and burnouts as a result of working too much, about the difference between private and professional listening, about his new projects involving live electronics, and why the Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards remains an inspiration.
What got you into music? What stuff did you listen to as a youngster that might have something to do with what you ended up doing as a musician? If there is a connection at all between your kind of private listening and your professional playing, and if this music still matters to you somehow, it's also interesting.
I was, and I am still a big Rolling Stones fan. And actually, I always say I have three examples in my life. It's Keith Richards and Peter Oetvius and Georgie Octors. And but it's very important for me, especially in stage attitude. I think now I still have that. I like rock and roll, and I like rock and roll, even if you play classical or contemporary or serious music. So it's about entertaining people still. So this is a very important topic for me. For the rest, I think if you ask what I listen to, for nowadays, I don't listen to music anymore at all. Only when I need to program for my job as a curator for the advanced master, then I really look for quality and for things that interest me, for new things, for sharp things. But as a listener, maybe on the train, I would go for like even Coldplay or U2 or Rolling Stones. Easy listening. Yep. To free time, because it's also issues with sometimes after I had a burnout when I was 30, and then you need time to come down sometimes, and you really need to let your mind go away from what you're doing. So music for me is more like something to, if I listen to it, something to relax and something to maybe find memories rather than enjoying. Actually, and it's a bit strange to say that, but it's actually true. So
interesting, very interesting. If you wouldn't mind, I'm just going to cut this in, but I would love to come back to later when you say burnout. If you want to talk about it, it's very private, of course. But if you want to talk about what led up to that and how you recovered and how you learn from that, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, but we can do this later if you want.
I wanted to be a musician. Maybe it was when I was 14. I knew I wanted to be, and then it was quite shocking to hear from a lot of people actually that I hadn't the level and I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't the talent and whatever. So actually, maybe the fuck you to that made it that I practiced so much.
What led you to taking lessons and stuff? Did you play bands? Did you play wind band? Did you play orchestra?
Rock band, big band, school band, youth orchestra. I think all the spectrum you could have, brass bands, harmony band. I all did that up to a certain level. I never went in this harmony championships or whatever, but then I started quite early to do like these youth orchestras and semi-professional classical orchestras. Yeah, that was the first step.
And then you auditioned somewhere in a conservatory. Yeah.
At 18, so I wanted to go to Brussels because for me it was the only place where it met to what I wanted to have in quality and also in repertoire, what they played there. Also, how they approached music in general. And I was let in because at the time there wasn't many students there. There was only like 4 or something, 5. And up to when I was finished Brussels, there was like that. Now it's a class of like 18 people or something. It's really crazy. Then it was a really small class, but we had a lot of place to practice, a lot of instruments. And I did 5 years in Brussels, so it wasn't a master degree yet, but now it's equally rated. And then after Brussels, I moved for an Erasmus initially to Detmold with Peter Prommel, and then stayed there because I really liked his approach to music psychology and also to practicing methods, also stress management, repertoire, and also every week we played a concert there. Like every Monday there was a class concert, so I played like 100 concerts in 2 years or something. It was crazy. He pushed me to do every week another piece, even if it wasn't ready, and that was the biggest lesson in my life. Fake it, and if it's necessary to fake it or to go through your limits when you're really stressed, and then you learn how to cope with stress. I try to do that with my students as well, but it's hard to organize this if you don't have the infrastructure. Actually, at the same time as I applied for the Concertexamen in Detmold, I applied for the Ensemble Modern Academy in Frankfurt and was let in both. So I did both at the same time. That was only 1 year. There was another. And I finished in Detmold the Concertexamen in 2009. And then I applied for PhD in Brussels. Yeah, so that's the parcours.
Cool. Looking back, this is a long time ago now, so 15 plus years. Is there anything that you still like have in the front of your mind as a professional that you're still working on, or is it, what is the kind of top 3 messages you took away from those years that you still?
That Wilcoxon is still the master. For snare technique, I still do it. Not every. I have periods where, if you need a certain, like the technical stability stays about 95%. If you need this 5% extra, then I always go to Wilcoxon or to Pratt or this rudimental drumming to get your chops back into place. So that's for sure. And also with Bart Cartier, we had a very consistent scales comprehension and also exercises coming from jazz because he's a jazz player. And with this whole system with every possible interval you could do with a scale and all inversions in all 12 tonalities, if it's either melodic or diminished scale, whatever combination of intervals. And that is the basis for me of my whole mallet playing, although I don't play so much mallets anymore. But now if I have to teach it, you see there's a basis that you can't break. I mean, there's so much comprehension of the instrument and of the scales and stuff. Yeah, so that's, I think those 2 very basic stuff, but it's the basis of everything, I think. Yeah.
And
sure.
How do you manage to keep the hands in shape between all the projects that you do? Like, how does a typical week in your life look now these days in terms of your own practice time and kind of just to stay in shape?
In shape, I have little problems. I have arthrosis in my thumb, so there's no cartilage anymore there, and it hurts. So the only thing I can do is keep the muscles around it in shape. That means in periods where I have heavy playing, like for example this week with desert music, where you have a lot of marimba, daga 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 daga. Just the week before I practice half an hour snare drum a day, but that's it. Much more than that, I really don't do anymore, and I really believe in this. If you build the basis over the first 15 years, then after a while, there's no need for practice.
It's kind of there, yeah. Is the arthritis some kind of damage or an autoimmune reaction thing?
No, it's damage. It's arthrosis. It's not arthritis. It's not an infection. It's just the cartilage in the bones is gone. And it's a genetic thing. So like joint should be more pronounced, and because it's not pronounced, it always shifted inside. Also with my playing, with snare drum playing, and this Mani Mono by Pierluigi Billoni fucked my wrists.
Oh.
Played it like 100 times, and you have to hold this
with
thing
the squeezing, with the squeezing of the springs. Yeah,
the joint was crazy.
Yeah,
and then it wears out. And then I was first treated by a quite celebrity doctor in Leuven from the university hospital.
Yeah.
She fucked it. She thought it was an infection of the tendons.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was so for 6 years she made me have injections with cortisone,
and it was the wrong thing. Oh my god!
I remember when I was practicing Donatoni and stuff like that. The first time I had this problem was when I did Omar in concert, and it was like my thumb would fall off or something.
Wow!
And it wasn't only that; it's just overusage of and wrong practicing. And now, if you understand it better, it's also because it's a genetic thing. If I have students that have the same kind of hands, they have to be very careful. I have this one student who has flexible joints, so she can she can't almost play snare drum in a way I teach it, because it overuses the
too hard
joint.
for the joint. Okay, so what do you do then?
Yeah, she has a program with her physiotherapist where she develops other muscles, and so she changes the grip, and it works quite well. But she has to be very careful. It's something to be aware of. Right?
I mean, we all have this kind of 20-something percussionist in us that just was chewing notes all day and just learning the hardest pieces. Yeah. That kind of investment. And it's also interesting to talk about injuries, like I said, and I'm sure the Billona also gave you a bit of tinnitus because it's a very metallic, very loud piece. That kind of. Do you have such problems?
No, never.
Never.
This year in Corona, but it was straight. I had some nights where I thought I would have tinnitus, but until now I'm saved from that. And also when I do tests of my hearing, it's quite okay. There's like a fall on 2000 hertz or something because of woodblock or vibraphone, I don't know.
Yeah.
I always remember what Pierre Boulez told me: if the ear is prepared, nothing is too loud.
Yeah. There's something to that, right?
Depends on your genetics also, but I mean, if you're prepared, it's fine. Yeah.
Right. Is there anything you want to talk about in terms of like studies or stuff you regret doing as a student? Not like necessarily about people or teachers you regret, but like choices you did as a student, pieces you would rather not have done, or how do you spend the time differently? Or
I strongly believe in a path, and then I'm sure if I didn't do this Keiko Abe bullshit, I've had the strength in my hands to do one of this marimba crazy shit of Mantovani or something. So yeah, I don't know if it's regret. I mean, now I have a clear opinion about what people like my students should play, but I also allow them to play even if it's not my taste anymore. But regrets, I don't think I ever have regrets in my life in general. I think it comes as it is, and then if you do it wrong, then you can change to something right if you want.
I sometimes feel for myself that you also invested a lot of time with like Nadar in the early days of Nikel, just learning a lot of music that you don't necessarily have in your life anymore, and that just took so much time. I mean, I sometimes think back on all the pieces we played with Asami Samasa. I don't want to mention any names or anything, but it's just so much work that you could that pieces that 10 years later you totally forgot them, right?
I think it's good you forget them as well. But the only regret I would have in this maybe is that sometimes I was too harsh to people when I was young. That's maybe a regret to a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually just found out I probably have ADHD.
Yeah. Okay.
And but maybe not attention deficit, but for sure hyperactivity and for sure impulsivity. And so I think I stepped on a lot of toes when I was between 20 and 30, and after 30 as well. So this I regret, but I always apologized.
Okay.
Except to one person. But that's a personal story. But yeah, I think this I regret a lot, that I spoke before thinking.
Out of personal pride or out of musical artistic engagement in the rehearsal or something? Or
always artistic. because I thought I knew best. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is like that, but sometimes it's not like that. And then,
yeah,
you always think you're in the place you are. You always think you're the king, but at least I think that because you're so sure of what you do, because you practice it all good, and then if people come in the way, it's hard to accept that. But mostly, it's maybe better to do it afterwards if you see it now, because maybe you can learn actually something from that also.
Would you say you've become a better team player with this experience behind you?
More careful.
More careful, yeah.
I don't know. It's better. It's more careful and more. I mean, it's not always that simple because, like last month, we had the project and I was very harsh again, but really with reason. And this person really took it very badly. But then I stood with my opinion. So it depends on the situation also. It's really not so black and white. But I think it's always the team thing is very important because without people you can't do anything. I mean, percussion soloist doesn't exist at all.
Yeah,
and you need people to bring you where you want to be.
Right.
But you need them as well. Yeah, I think so.
Do you want to go into more recent stuff, stuff that really kept you busy in the past, maybe 5 years or 5 to 10 years, if you want, and also describe how your practice changed, or if there was ever a big change in your practice, and how this came about, and what kind of engages you today?
Yeah. Okay, that's a big question. So I think it started the change in my way of playing and seeing things started with the PhD, of course, because anyway you need to spend time on what you do and what you think about and what you want to do for the next part of your life. And then with this whole reflection and also the choice of thinking of this repertoire that actually was part of my life than the 10 years before the PhD, then I really wanted to make a point on it and say, okay, I'm going to make recordings that I think is how the pieces should be played, and that can also help people with this Living Scores platform, that can help people to learn it, break it down, analyze it, and play long recordings, click tracks, tools, and whatever. And that I think was the biggest change in my view as a teacher or as I don't know, a mentor or what. I don't know, like all these words because they're so old fashioned, but I think it was the first step in finding a way to help people to be better than me. And that I strongly believe that. I always found that, even if I was 18, that a teacher's job, my parents are teachers as well, that a teacher's job is to make a student better than himself. For me, summum as a teacher. And I really thought about how I could do that and how I could help or enthusiast people for the thing I'm very passionate about, which is contemporary music as a whole, but very specific pieces also, what we do with Ictus and what I did with Nikel and also with Nadar, like that. So it's always, of course it changes, but there's always a kind of quality label behind it. No, it's something that's there and that you feel it. It's hard to name it, what is actually why it's good, but you feel it's good and you really want to push it in the world, and you want to help this composer to be played also by students, etc. And I think now I've really found my way in Ghent with the advanced masters together with my colleague Joris Blankart to enthusiast people and to find really for the people a way they can really live of what they want to do. The most important, and I think there's a big lack in art education in general in the world, about how to help them find something that they go to a teacher to become as a teacher. And that's something I always found with the big schools. Like there's so many different examples of that, and they all go there to play exactly the same repertoire as a teacher, to do exactly the same with the same instruments, to learn the maestro's view on the things. And for me, it's impossible, because the whole thing I always did was every piece I always question marked everything and reinvented the whole thing. This is something very important for me. And then I think now with the advanced master in Ghent and also in Liège, it's coming. It's another level of students, of course, because advanced masters are people, they know what they want and they know where to go and who to contact. But I really want them to find something they are good at and give it to the world, so it can evolve to something else instead of repeating.
Right.
Rostock or old violin schools, always the same thing.
Do you feel though that the schools you mentioned in contemporary music, is it even possible to copy such personal styles? And even in the repertoire, there's so many free instrument pieces, and I'm not sure I agree with you on the kind of copycat thing. Whether that's maybe it happens when everything is very standardized, like say piano or
percussion is not piano. Percussion is a very problematic instrument as a whole, and you can't expect from this instrument to be on the same level as piano. You will have a job if you keep it local, if you find something else that nobody does, if you find a niche that you are really good at and that you can really move people, not only percussionists, but the whole world, if you want. And I don't know how to talk about this without offending people. It's really hard.
Yeah, that's really hard. It is hard. But is there a scene that we don't mention here, which is the scene of the competitions? So when you say to get a job, you mean to get hired by an ensemble or maybe an orchestra, or you certainly don't mean to get a solo job, to get a solo concert somewhere. But there's the competition scene that's maybe dominating a lot right now.
Yeah, it's dominating, but it's without any sense. And everybody knows Bartok says competition are for horses, and it's like that. A competition doesn't serve anything except for the fact that you learn a lot of repertoire in a short time and that you raise your level. That's the only thing a competition is good. But the whole thing is there's way too many people playing very well and also applying for the same post, where you get competitions or even auditions for orchestra, like my orchestra, for example, which is not even like a top orchestra. There's 115 people applying for one job, and it's paid less than 2,000 euros a month.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Wow.
So that I think the whole basis of the problem is that we have too many players. Good players, not in the sense of exceptional players, not players that would really shake something, whether you see, of course, we all know this kind of guys or girls where you can see this guy is going to do something. And anyway, if he does a competition or not, whatever, he's going to survive. We have a way too high level number of people that are just below, but still extremely good.
Still very good professionals. Does that point back to the educational system maybe, and how conservatories all over the world also have some kind of market competition between them?
Because you have to fill your classes with people, because otherwise you get subventions. I really think we should really get rid of this money per head subvention system for schools. It's ridiculous. I think we should really go to a model which is much more related to top sports, where people get the money because they're good and not because they're numerous. No, but this is something we can work on for 20 years still, and it's not going to be there anyway. But I think the question for students, if they have to choose where to go, is what do you want to do and why? That's the only question I ask all my students. Not only what, but why. And if you see yourself in 10 years, how do you see it? I mean, where do you want to go? You want to teach, you want to work, you want to play, you want to entertain kids with music. Everything is right. But tell me why you want to do that. And not because you want to earn money or I want to be the best or whatever.
There's a lot happening, I feel, also when you start to push classical music or contemporary music into the strains of popular culture or rock starism or something like that. It's kind of when you kind of do it for non-musical motivations. I don't see why you did. Personally, I have trouble seeing why I want to just play full-on pop music then, instead of trying to be a classical musician playing pop music.
Or you can you can make the format you play, but then it needs a lot of work. And that's actually what we stand for at Ictus, I think, and it's very important for us. You can make it so it's actually nice to look at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or it sounds actually good, or the amplification is actually well done. You know? And invest money in that, and then you can come closer to what they do in pop culture. They do for many years, and they do it way better than us. That's a big problem I have with a lot of the new series of composers. That you want to do something with light, but again, why? Because Beyoncé does it way better than you. And she has
a different budget.
Tell me why you want to do that, and if you want to do something with light or with amplification, then at least try to do it as good as possible. Like learn how an EQ works, learn how a compressor works, and then apply it what you do.
Right. When you speak about Ictus, can you talk a little bit about that, your engagement with the Ictus ensemble, and how the artistic processes work within that group? Because you're a larger group, I don't know, 15 players, 20 players?
Actually, more than 20. Yeah, it depends now how we work. We changed a lot over the past years.
Yeah.
But so I play with them since 2007 as a freelancer, and then fixed member since 2014, I think, something like that. And then it's my whole professional career is about luck, like most of us, I think. So I learned I had to learn the cymbalon when I was in Ensemble Modern, and Rumi told me, so you'll play cymbalon next week. And I sent my CV to Tom Powers the next week, and I said, by the way, at the end of the mail, I said, by the way, from now on I play cymbalon too. So he emails me back and said, okay, we need the cymbalon player. I had to play this really, really difficult score from Jan Marais quartet with electronics in Irkam, of all places, like my first concert ever. It was in Paris with full-on electronics, 5 computers that actually crashed in the concert. That was hilarious.
Of course.
And that was the first. And then I was very lucky again that then Rosas was touring the Steve Reich evening concert where Miguel was sick or something, or he had some concerts that I had to replace him. And from then on, I was involved in a very regular basis. Like it went from 10 concerts up to now 40, 50 a year. And they asked me to replace Tom Powers for a year as artistic director. And then now I'm in the team of artistic direction, and I'm more like an advisor. I conduct as well since 3 years, since Einstein on the Beach. So I play percussion, I play cymbalon, I conduct, I do keyboards. But that's Ictus, I think. So everybody that's there doesn't do one thing. So everybody's versatile. Everybody knows at least how amplification works, how sound cards work, how you can make your own sound and make your own, how to make something else than your instrument, for example.
Right.
Or most of them play multiple instruments. There's some composers, there's some really brilliant minds there. And now the ensemble moves a bit more to a kind of pool of instrumentalists and just artists that work together and that propose projects, and then it depends on how the budgets are, which comes off or not. It's not an ensemble like in the early 2000s anymore, where we play sinfonica style repertoire, Italis or the Apergis, which made them famous. Before me, I wasn't there yet. But now it moves much more to with the famous liquid room setting, where there's a lot of things going on at the same time. 4 hours of repertoire, everybody's playing, everybody's moving.
I was experiencing that at the Märzmusik, I think in 2015 or 16 in Berlin. That was amazing, where you had basically just filled the room with musicians in all different spots and had just a spotlight moving around. That was awesome. I remember very well your timbre.
And it's an idea. Tom Powers is a genius, and also Jean-Luc Plouvier, they're both artistic directors. But Tom Powers built this idea together with Romitelli. It's actually an idea of Romitelli. So it was the rock idiom translated to music. So you have a mini festival in a room with 4 stages, and there's no gaps. Audience can always go out. This, for me, it's also very important that an audience member decides if he wants to listen to it or not.
Yeah,
this, for me, it's very liberating to know that people are there because they want to be there,
Right.
and next to you because they want to sit next to you, and not because they bought the ticket and they want to sit out the whole concert. I think it's very refreshing to work like that. And now we move in two ways. I started a collaboration because I'm in the orchestra as well, because some of the members wanted to go back a little bit to more traditional playing. So now we have a collaboration with Brussels Philharmonic and Ictus, and we just did the first concert with Steve Reich and Kevin Bryars and Charles Ives, which is much more classical in artistic, in programmation, but which has a lot of attention for the curatorial dramaturgy of a concert, how to make a concert more than a series of pieces, but to have really a narrative line. This is things we really think about, and we try to move a bit the scene also, so it becomes much more an art-based music scene than just a 19th century series of.
So how was this done in concrete terms with the Reich, Bryars?
Very important. So we started, the whole concert was called The Unanswered Question, like the Charles Ives piece. Started because of Corona. I started with an empty hall, of course, because there's no audience. It's online if you want to see it. Maybe it's nice to post the link because it's quite nice. It's a bit static, but it's okay. So it starts with the question of the existential question of life, of course, with the trumpet asking questions and the woodwinds reacting, of course. And then the second piece was proverbs without gaps. So we recorded the strings, the full orchestra string section, and then it was played back, and the wind players just played along with the tape. And at the end, the chord is in G, and it's actually the major chord of the minor chord of proverb. So we go without gap to proverb. The first singer starts alone, and we do proverb. At the end of proverb, there was a big alarm from the tape and a big bell. And then there was Sinking of that Titanic of Gavin Bryars. So there was like a big sound, really, really nice. And then people running around, finding their places. Then very contemplative, almost very, very sad piece actually. Thinking of,
it's beautiful.
And then it goes back at the end of the Titanic. There's a music box playing that they found in the wreck, and this music box was then prolonged by the two Jean-Lucs with bubbles, like water going up and down. And without gap, we go into Tehillim, which gives them.
It's a big concert.
It was great.
Sounds amazing.
I was as a conductor alone, so I was extremely stressed.
Wow. Amazing.
Nice.
Amazing that you get to conduct such stuff.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. Again, but I'm always lucky.
Amazing.
I said to Jean-Luc, I want to conduct. Okay, let's do it. And then you just do it. And
fantastic. Yeah. So, we're talking about some kind of bigger dramaturgical take on the things. And you do you stage them as well? Or is it only about the kind of musical connection?
No, it's staged. There's a light engineer, a light designer, actually. We did a very radical mix, actually. A lot of people don't like how we did it. You have to check if you like it or not. But especially the Ives had a lot of musicologists that said, no, it's not like the piece it should be.
Right.
Or there's a lot of balance choices we did that are quite radical. And then the lighting and the staging, I mean, people know where they are at any time. So there's a conduit stage planned. Everybody single person has to know where he sits. So the strings start in the aisles. There's one singer waiting outside. The trumpet stays in the hall. The woodwinds come down when they hear the alarm. All this kind of, it's like acting.
A choreography thing that you, Amazing. So is this something that interests you in general, this kind of restaging of classical works, or even recomposing of classical works in order to kind of, like you said, you want to bring that extra level or that new element into the classical repertoire? Yeah,
I think for me it's evident, because if you want, there's so many recordings already of all these pieces. So if you do it, like Einstein, we did as well. We also did a radical new reading of that piece. If you want to do it as good as the original gem, it's impossible. Because it's like the Bob Wilson staging of Einstein, you can't copy. It's something you don't touch. It's there.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to touch that piece, then you have to really turn it around and see what you can do, and then make something out of it that builds a new standard, but that can be next to it, not above or below, but just next to it. And I think we did the same with Telim. I mean, it's not radical in a way you would say I don't recognize the piece. But for example, the third movement, my choice was to have strings way more mellow and way less attack than actually normally is played in the Reich. And for me, it was fantastically. But then you get apologists that call me and say, "Hey, but you did it wrong. You don't understand the piece."
Right.
And then you will see maybe it's possible to do it.
Right.
So
what kind of competence do you feel is necessary to take those choices, other than your own musical intuition, or is that a group decision, or is it your personal decision as a conductor? And kind of what's the reflection behind those takes?
Only intuition.
Okay.
All the choices, but you need people that are very sharp, like Pluvier, for example. An example, like Einstein on the Beat. We were programming like half a year and thinking of how we want to do. And we arrived to the second to last piece is Building. And it's a very fast organ piece with woodwind improvisation. And then Pluvier just said, "Oh, fuck it. I'm tired of this piece. Let's just put it in the computer, this part, and play really fast. So it's over very fast." And actually, this is the high point of the piece now.
That's what he did. He just sped up the part. Yeah.
Yeah. He said, "Okay, let's fuck it. Let's just do it otherwise." And then if people now come, the only thing they say, "Oh, this moment where the computer takes over and improvise over it is so nice." Yeah, that's how it goes. I think it's only intuition and trust between people, that if you do a choice like that, it will be great. And also on stage, you just have to speak out. No? That's
right.
That's the attitude I was talking about. I mean, if you don't stand for it, like for example, Mike played a Fernie House solo over this building thing in Einstein. It sounds totally ridiculous, but he does so well with a Mickey Mouse T-shirt with a dead head. I mean, it's
Mike the flute player, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's so good. You can only watch him. And then Pluvier made a sample base of 88 samples, only prut prut beat, and then in the solo. 5 minutes. It's funny. It works. It just you blow it up with 5,000 watts, and then it's good.
Have you had some kind of issues where composers come back to you and say that please withdraw this version, take it offline or whatever?
Not with those pieces, because mostly we had that, of course. There was Stockhausen's widow complaining about how we did microphonie, but she never actually saw it, so it's okay. But also with microphonie, for example, we did a very radical version that worked very well, but it's another piece. If you follow the piece like you do the reading with the 1958 version of but this may be something to remember also. If you take these choices, it has to be based on history, and that's what we really do. So always, if you take this kind of choice, we know what happened before. We know when the piece is written. We know what the other did. We know all the different recordings. So it's not a fuck you to establishment. It's just another choice.
Right.
So it's not with disrespect, but it's another reading. And then, of course, you get complaints of a lot of serious people that say, "Oh, you can't touch Steve Reich or Philipp Glass or Stockhausen or." But why not? I mean,
exactly, and this is super interesting because there are, like you said, there is a tradition out there and a certain way of doing things. And your point is, I guess, why would you just want to repeat that? You want to find your own way, and your way is then a reaction to everything that's already present because you want to find your own place.
Yes, I don't see any interest in repeating the same thing.
Right.
But it's my person also. I always look for new, also in practice, in instruments, or in everything. I always look for new challenges. And if the challenge is gone, it's really boring.
This is very interesting. Would you say that that's one of your main motivations as a musician playing like composed music? And the lead up question to that is, do you also make your own music?
Yeah. Of course. Now it's a big change now, I think, in my life. I took the step to make my own music, but I'm not a composer at all. But with the instrument I built with the research project last year, which is the micro percussion setup, I will send, maybe you can add the links or something with
For sure.
the recording. So that's the moment I said, I think I'm far enough now to also have a voice as a creator. No, I find it also big words, but I really don't find myself like on the same level as a artist or whatever. But I have the need to express something that can't be done by composers, or you have to do a really cumbersome back and forth composers and really push people in the direction you want. So now I'm really trying to go in a kind of co-creation path with different composers. I start with a lot of Flemish guys that are in the electronic scene, and then I really would like to make a part of my further path as a musician this searching for making something together with people. So not only complying to what other people want that you do, but also investing and also saying, look, I have this, what can you do with that? Can we make something together? Can we play together? I always share the stage with them as well. So if we make something together, I always insist that they are together with me on stage, and then we have a composer in the hall or something like that, but really two people on stage, even if it's very awkward for them sometimes. Some of the people.
Do you then work with the same kind of staging idea of a live event, or is it more for the album format?
No, it's more how to put it, more traditional in concert now, but it's not. I mean, it's really at the beginning steps now. But my vision of it is music for musicians. It's not something that would be on big stages, or that would be maybe one piece could be in a liquid room or something. That could be possible, but it's not the purpose to make like 1,000 people show out of it. It's more something that is for people that look for detail in music. And there's a big community, I found out also, I didn't know that, of people that are really looking for music on Bandcamp, on Spotify, and stuff like that, and field recording artists, etc. So it's very interesting. But those people, for them, it's very interesting just to listen and not have this extra performance on top of it to have.
Right.
Yeah, and for me, it's refreshing to find this scene. I didn't know it. I stumbled upon it in the project, and but it's very refreshing, and it makes me look for other sounds, for other ways of playing, another way how to look at an instrument also. Also through amplification, you can sometimes bring out things you never could bring out acoustically.
Right. Can you talk a little about the technical detail of how you do that, and what kind of software you use, or even microphones, or what objects you manipulate? Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. So it's able to live, like all of the youngsters use now. So I have 14 microphones. Most of them are contact microphones because of the detail of the sound, and all the instruments are mini versions of what it. So my bass drum is a frame drum of 16-inch. My hi-hat is a broken cowbell. There's this bunch of sounding balls, all very small. This helix from Mile that costs 60. Everything together costs maybe 2,000 euros in total. So it's really not a lot of. Yeah, it's really low budget. The sound cards are more important. So those are more expensive, of course, but then you can choose the level you want. But for me, the quality of the preamps was very important, and the quality of the microphone. So these Shetler contact mics are way better than this piezo, of course, and they have another kind of quality of capturing the sounds. So these I use a lot. 8 of them in the setup.
What's the brand again?
It's Shetler, the Swiss PAs I use for groups of instruments. Like I have a small drum setup in the setup also, and then like Crotales, a bunch of them, and then it's with one mic. There's some dynamic. There's something I found which was very interesting after some research with foam. That the flight case foam, this black flight case foam I use for Bilone, can transfer via contact mic all the resonance of long-sounding metal instrument.
Wow!
I enhance the attack with dynamic mics that are in foam as well. It's a combination. Yeah, sometimes a bit bricolage.
You're setting a 20-track multi of 20 tracks into Ableton, and you have your calling.
Like my instrument is the set with all and every instrument has a track with the sound coming in and an effect track.
Yeah.
Sound coming
for each track. There's an effect track.
Yeah. And then the whole instrument of all these tracks that passes through groups of effects as well.
Yeah.
And the purpose was to have amplification of of very small instruments, but so to the level you can really fill a hall of 1,000 people with like 2 suitcases of 4-week golf. But at the same time, also have the possibility to transform the sound in a way you can always hear the source of the sound. So it doesn't become just a knob where you hear a sample,
right?
But the basic sound is always acoustic, but you can really transform things to like the smallest thing can become a monster.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took a year to build it and to conceptualize it, but now it's really how I want it.
And how do you develop musical forms? You improvise a lot, or how do you do it? Like just jam and improvise? Yeah.
And then also with people like Andrea Mancianti was a very big influence. Also Kasper Toplitz, people from the noise scene that do this for years. I mean, it's people that built Ableton from the start almost, if you want. And then how to organize these kind of things, how to find something in your setup that can be musically interesting. So they know how it goes, and the influence of these people that are really experienced, it helps, of course.